Where he went. Okay, guys, we're coming over here to my gold prospecting seminar. Actually, I should just turn the camera around. I lost my cameraman. I hope he gets back. I'll try to remember to. Excuse me, guys. Let me put this over here. Hello. Yeah, I gotta find room for my camera and my cameraman, and he's not here yet.
If you're driving down the road in Arizona,
You guys okay if we set this and my cameraman here?
and you see a wash and you're interested, can you just jump out?
Well, if it's BLM land, you can do it if it doesn't have a claim. If no one has claimed the land, you're allowed to do it. And then if you find gold, you can go put in a claim.
What if it's just beside the road?
Well, it could be private property, and you need permission and other stuff, so it's a little hard to.
But if it's a city property, let's say it's close enough, let's take a guess.
But if it's private, you're going to have to ask somebody. You know, to figure out
Let me see.
if they care. And a lot of people don't care.
Alright, it's already live. Alright.
Is here. And so I'll be sitting over here running the sluice. I'll pan it out when we're finished. Over here. He'll talk and then we'll do some panning. Anybody wants to pan some gold, see if they can find a chunk of gold, can pan out of that bucket over there. And they can pan right here. Whoever hasn't seen, you just pan right here like you're in a river. And we'll pan this gold, which is
This gold.
gold pay dirt. Gold.
Power on. Bluetooth. Pairing. Bluetooth. Connected.
About so.
Testing. Can you
Not
get
too
camera
much.
all right?
Put a whole
Okay.
bunch.
Whole bunch?
About 3 scoops still. Right?
3 scoops.
Well, two or three scoops. Oh my God. 2 scoops. You're pretty good size scoops. Okay, there you go. So we'll have you
One
come
scoop
out
for
and
me,
you
or
start
2
this
scoops
stuff.
for you.
You start out on the big side, and once it gets down real small, you go to the small side. Okay? So Jimmy,
Hello, everybody.
I've kind of oriented them to what
Thank
I'm
you,
doing
Robin.
over
Sorry
here.
I got here late.
And Jimmy is going to kind of go through the stuff while I'm running the sluice. He's going to talk about
Well, my cameraman made it. Thank you.
various organizations.
There's the go guy,
And,
everybody.
Jimmy has all kinds of special things on his chest here. So,
So I've been doing this for, gosh, almost 20 years now. And I don't do it as much as I used to because I have some severe nerve damage and carrying these buckets is heavy. But I have this little thing that we call the fever. And when you get the fever, you still do it even if it hurts. It's just, it's for years I love to do anything in the outdoors, as I'm sure many of you do. That's why we become nomads and we go out into the outdoors. You know, I've done hiking, photography, fishing. When I fish, I personally don't eat the fish. I'll set them back unless they're not going to live, then I'll find somebody who will take them. I've never thrown a piece of gold back, ever. So that's why I kind of do that a little bit more now because, yeah. I started out watching a TV show called Gold Fever with Tom Massey. Some of you guys know it. And it gave me the fever. And I moved up from this horrible town called Bakersfield, California, up to a much nicer town in the mountains above Bakersfield called Lake Isabella, California, where there's a lot of gold prospecting and fishing and hiking and all the things I like to do. So I got into it really severely up there. I joined the GPAA, then the Lost Dutchman Mining Association, which are the same company, but different levels of clubs. And that's one of the first things I really like to tell everybody about when it comes to this, is how you can use this to find new camping. And I just realized I forgot to bring my book. But when you join the GPAA, they'll give you a book that's like this thick. It's full. Can everybody hear me okay?
A little louder.
Yeah, I know, it doesn't, I'll just try to talk more clearly. So when I joined the GPAA, they gave me a book with a whole bunch of mining claims that you can go to as a club member. These mining claims are all on public land. And if it's a mining claim on public land, we still have the right to camp there, but you cannot interfere with the miners' operations. So even if you're not a club member, once you know about these claims, you can learn that most of the claims have a good road going in, and it can give you, people are always complaining about, everywhere I go, there's too many people camping. If you go out to some of these gold mining claims, there's a good chance you're not going to see anybody else out there, or if you do, it's just going to be a couple prospectors who just don't want you in their stuff unless you're working with them. A lot of us are like really friendly, and we're like love to teach each other how to do it and show each other the different things. So the GPAA is one of the easy ways to get started. We also recently joined the local club here in Quartzsite. It's only $20 a month, and they have like a year. Thank you. $20 a year, and they have like 30 claims. At least half of them are open at any time, and you can go out there and start prospecting right now. That's where we got all this dirt that we found the other day, and I have a good feeling that we will find something in it. Sorry. These are some of the cards from the local mining shop. If anybody's really interested, there's not a whole bunch of them, but they have a booth at the big show right now. And they wrote their number on the back of one of them, so we want to keep that one, the first one there. If anybody wants to take a picture of their number, they're in Quartzsite. We're going back to Quartzsite. They're just before the RV pit stop. And they have everything you need. That's where you can sign up for the club. After being a GPAA member for several years, I finally upgraded to the Lost Dutchman's Mining Association, which is the premier club, and that's what this comes from. They have about 12 camps across the country that are patented, deeded mining claims, and those are not public land. So you can only camp on those if you're a member. The original reason I joined, once you were a member of the LVMA, you could camp on their properties the rest of your life for free. The only caveat was every 6 months you had to go to a different camp. So I thought, what a great deal. I can join a prospecting club and camp for the rest of my life. Now they've had to change it because, like everything else in the world, expenses, it's $3 a day. Maybe 10 if you want to go out to Stanton and have school with them. But $3 a day isn't too bad. And they have these outings at each of their different camps. This is the old style tag. You have to buy it from somebody special now. But as you go to each of the different camps, they give you a different tag that shows that you've been there. And they have different camps all over the country where they do these group outings, which are a great way for anybody who doesn't know what to do to get started in this. The group outings are 3 days or 5 days, depending on how many days you can commit. It costs the same either way. As an LDA member, you can go to the group outings for about $80 or $100. A GPAA member can go for, I think it's like $140, $150. If you're neither, and you pay $200, that comes with 2 years of the GPAA, which is the big book full of claims. And you get to go to the outing where they bring in a tractor, they dig up all the dirt for us, they set up all the equipment for us. We'll have like a pond with like 5 of these on each side, much bigger ones. And we all go out and work 4 hours a morning and have games in the afternoon, and the vendors will come out and show us their new products. And at the end, everybody gets a share of the gold. Sometimes it comes out really good if we hit a good pocket. That's like gold is where you find it. We can go do this for days, and sometimes we won't find anything, and then the next day you get into a nice little pocket of gold and you can find some really good stuff. So that's the first thing I like to tell everybody about is the different clubs, because that's a great way to learn. And if you go out to an outing, it's just like any of these other events. It's a bunch of people that we all get along great. We have a great time. We play games in the evening, we mine in the morning, and we learn things. Some of us teach others if we've been doing it for a long time. Some of us not so much. So Robin over here is feeding the sluice box right now.
All right, now we live
Gold
again.
is one of the heaviest things out there, and it has a specific gravity. Once you know that specific gravity, you can realize what's going to trap it. The key here with the sluice box, just like a rock in a river, as the water goes over it, it creates kind of an eddy, and it's kind of a dead zone, which allows the heavier materials, including gold, to drop out and get locked behind the riffle. There's also something called a dry washer, which works very similar, but instead of using water to separate the light materials from the heavy, on a dry washer, the riffles are backwards, and it puffs air up through the bottom. So it's still separating the light stuff. The real dust will go up into the air. The lighter things will work their way off the end. I would have brought my dry washer out here, but the problem with the dry washer is it makes a huge cloud of dust, and I didn't think everybody would appreciate that. But it is fun to look at. There are so many different ways that you can prospect. All you really need is a pan. And there are a million different types of pans, a million different designs. If you were to join the GPAA or the LVMA, you would get one of the basic pans, which we have here, but I don't see it. But it's pretty similar to this one, just a little bit larger. This is my favorite pan. I got this a year ago. It's kind of expensive, but it's called the gold cloth. Most of these, you want to keep the angle like this, because that makes the gold lock down into those little, most pans, you want your angle like this. And the process is to shake. However, everybody does it a little differently. But you want to use the water, and you want to just wash the top stuff, the light layer off the top. We have, well, let some of you guys try it out in a minute. The thing I like about this pan, it's got a different sort of deeper, more profound groove in it. They say you can actually pan with this pan like this and move a ton of material. So you could literally have just this little pan and go out and start doing it and move a lot of dirt and have a better chance of finding gold. What I really like about this one, you guys probably can't see it, but there's these little tiny grooves up on this corner. The hardest thing for me about prospecting, aside from digging is expensive, yeah. Now it can be fun. It's like playing in the dirt. It's like you're a kid again, an excuse to play in the dirt again, you know. And really, it can be fun. I love it. But it is worth doing. That's what we're at the end, there's a lot of black sand. There's certain things that are always associated with gold. Quartz, black sands. And when we're done with this, when we clean this out, we'll have a little bit of light material that we'll wash off in the pan. And then what'll be behind is black sand and hopefully some gold flakes. Separating the black sand from those gold flakes can be tricky. The black sand is magnetic. There are a million different ways to do it. There's the blue ball swirling machine. There's the shaker tables. But what I like is with this one here, those little tiny ripples on the side. If I just take it with my concentrate, that's what we call the final product, and just barely wash it, the black sand walks right off, and for whatever reason, those little flakes of gold get stuck on those little things. I love this thing. It's pretty awesome.
Can you hold that up over your head so we can see it?
Sorry, I hadn't heard a question, but
Can you hold that up over your head so we can see it back here?
oh, yeah, sorry, you can't see. Can't see it again.
And is there a name for that pan?
This is called the gold claw pan. It's kind of pricey for a pan. Gold claw.
Claw.
Claw. Like a bear claw. Yeah. I'll get to you in 1 second. So this is what the pan looks like, and you probably can't see the little ripples from over there, but those are the little ripples that I love. You had a question, sir?
You do that right in the creek?
You can do it right in the creek, but you don't really want to do it in the turbulent water. If you're going to do it in the creek, you want to find a place where there's like a little bit of an eddy and kind of a calm pool. But if you really think you're on the gold, you'd rather do it in the pan, because even me, I've been doing this for years and I don't lose much, but I pan everything 2 or 3 times, because sometimes you still lose a little bit. And like I said, we all have a different way of prospecting, a different way of panning, you know, gold's heavy, it's going to drop. As long as you keep everything shaking, it's going to drop. Back in, I think it was the 50s, sorry. I'm talking for 2 seminars in a row, I got to cough up some of this dust. Back in the 50s or the 60s, there was a huge earthquake in Alaska, and some of the houses that they thought were on solid ground completely sunk underground from the earthquake. What that's called is stratification. When you move something a lot, it becomes a liquid state. Even though it's dirt, if it's shaking around fast enough, it turns itself into a liquid state, stratification, and heavier things are able to fall through more easily. And that's what happened to those houses in Alaska, and that's the whole process of how this works. It's all some sort of stratification. We're turning a solid product, which is dirt when we pull it out of the ground, into a liquid state, in this case by adding liquid. Speaking of liquid,
Thanks, sir.
I use that. So let me see what else I got here to show you guys.
Quick question.
Yes.
And I got this gentleman helped me so much
Yeah.
earlier, but I had a quick question. One thing I forgot to ask. I had mentioned earlier that I was in Central America, out in rainforest area, right close to a mountain. Came down to a gorgeous river, crystal clear water, and I saw all this beautiful sparkling. And I'm like, there's no way.
Probably, because the thing is, gold wants to go to the bottom. So probably what you saw was fool's gold. There's 2 types of fool's gold,
Right.
pyrite and mica. And usually when you look in a river, and
Real flaky.
very flaky, if you break it with your fingers, it'll break apart. The sides are usually black. That's absolutely fool's gold. When you see real gold, you'll know the difference. And we are going to show you some real gold here.
Is that a sign, though, that there could be
It
gold in that area?
can be. Gold likes to hang out in highly mineralized areas because it's a mineral. When it comes up from the ground in a liquid state, volcanic processes or whatever, it's about the same weight and gravity as quartz. But then when they solidify, they're completely separate. The quartz is soft and crushable, and the gold is more malleable. But when they're liquid, they're so similar. If you put different types of oil and water in a jar, and you'll see how some of them hang out at different levels. When it's molten, gold and quartz kind of hang out together. Good indicator of gold is always quartz and always black sand. Any place that you see pyrite or mica, there's also a chance that there could be gold.
Not a black sand there.
Really, there's gold in almost every state. The Tom Massey guy that I used to watch, he's gone to every state and even found like a little flake in Alaska. Or no, maybe Alaska was the only. There was one state, not Alaska, Hawaii. Hawaii was the one state that he either found the tiniest flake or nothing. But everywhere else he goes, he finds gold. He's gone down into the Los Angeles River, you know, that big concrete wash, and he'll go down there and clean out the cracks in that and take it and pan it out. He goes to the jewelry district in Chicago and cleans out the cracks in the sidewalks and finds like little gems and stuff that have been there for maybe 100 years. And gold is because it's heavy, it's got to stop somewhere. So this is the number one thing if you're really, really looking for gold. You want to find where it's going to stop, and that's generally bedrock. But clay can act as a false bedrock, and a lot of times clay will trap a lot of gold, which is, we didn't get to bedrock on this, but we did get to a nice, really, really red clay layer. So I'm hoping, if not, we have something to show you anyway. I'm going to have to put this down for a second to get into the next part. Well, I'll talk about it a little first. These are crazy. I don't know if I believe it, but I believe it. It's dowsing rods. You've heard of, finding water. I've seen this. At one of the outings, we had half our people dig their holes just by whatever they thought, and another girl found her hole by using her dowsing rods, and I tried it, and our group found our hole by using dowsing rods. That outing, we did the digging. Usually they bring the tractor. They do it different all the time to, give people a chance to do different things. And when I saw these, I was amazed. I mean, I don't know if I believe in hokey pokey, but the idea behind this, where did I get them? At one of the gold camps. A lot of vendors come out there and sell their different gold prospecting wares. What was I looking for? Oh, okay. So, in my little vial here, I have some gold, and they say it's all about, supposedly, your thought process. But they say if you hold what you're thinking about in one hand, it's supposed to work better. And I'm not going to actually dig and run dirt out here in the middle of the fairground, but I'm just going to walk around for a minute and see if they'll cross anywhere. And they might not, they might. But when they cross, if you're thinking about water, that's where they look. If you're thinking about gold, that's where you're digging. If you're in your house and you lost your phone, that's where you start digging for the phone. You want to hold them as level as possible and think about what you're thinking about. I almost wonder if I should put my little bag of gold on the ground. I don't know if maybe better to put it. We'll see if they cross. They don't always do it for me. And if I really wanted to, I could lean them in to make them cross. But I try my damnedest to keep them straight up.
What if you have gold in your teeth?
So, I gotta think about gold, 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 think about gold. It's hokey pokey. It's spiritual. It's magic. That's on psychic. I don't know if I really believe it or not, but I think it works.
Are they made out of copper?
I've seen it work so many times, I can't not believe it, but the scientific side of it is like, no. But I do it. I still use it. I believe it.
Are those made out of
Yes.
copper?
These ones are made out of copper, yes. But you can do it with simply a stick. Sometimes they'll take a fork stick and they'll wrap a little bit of copper around the end of the fork stick. Let's see what Robin's doing over here. Looks like we're at the end of the first bucket. Are we doing one bucket or two? You might have.
What about a different
Oh,
mineral?
yeah. Oh, yeah, the other bucket's for panning, okay. So let me just start showing you guys some of the gold here. I don't have a ton, I've sold some of it. I never have found it like to get rich or anything like that. But one thing that was really cool, the last gold prospector outing, we met this guy who blows glass. And what he does is he takes the different pieces of gold from all the different places he goes, and he blows them into his glass. And it gives it each place, because every bit of gold has a little different mineral content. Some gold will be a little more red, some will come out a little more, blue, or just whatever. You hear there's different carats, 22 carat, 24 carat. What makes the difference is what other minerals are in there. If there's a little bit of silver, it may turn blue. If there's a little bit more iron, it may turn red. And I'll walk around and show you guys this because it's kind of hard to see the detail, but I was really impressed with all the things that I see people do.
See it, there's like little swirls in it. That's the actual gold melted into the glass. That is beautiful. And he can make like little turtles and all kinds of things.
You'll have to make you a
It's the gold is melted into the glass. That's what gives us that color swirl. So, and I could save gold in this, but it's more of just kind of a
Yeah, they've been using gold,
Cool little thing
gold
to
to
show
make
people.
wood for thousands of years.
yes, yes.
The movie
Do you see the little
Play Button, when you get
swirlies
to
on the
100,000
end? Yeah.
Subscribers are made out of gold and glass.
Hopefully everybody's getting a good look at it. There's little swirls in
Hopefully
there.
one day we can be there.
Right.
Probably not.
rainbow up there in the clouds.
How they make what? I'm not sure what gold's
I'm sorry. You don't want me to wash my hands.
It looks like it's got gold in it, but it's something that the monks discovered 1800 years ago or something. And it looks like gold, but it's glass. They make it with silica.
That might be. Might be. I've never heard of that before, but that very well could be. And that reminded me of something. Something you said just reminded me of something I really wanted to tell everybody. Now I can't remember what it was. Monks, Goldstone, years ago. I don't know. I'll remember as soon as I go on to the next thing. So I guess I'll just show you guys my little gold collection. If anybody wants to come up, maybe that might be easier than walking around. It's in glass vials. If I drop it, I'll be out here. In 1 second. Yeah, actually, well, I was going to use that for this, but yeah, in 1 second, I will give you guys some painting lessons. Now, the gold always looks bigger when it's in these little glass vials because it's magnified. I've got it separated between my flour gold and my bigger pieces and the medium pieces. And yeah, it makes really good pictures. And when the sun hits it, that's how, when you're prospecting, when the sun hits it, you know it's gold. That's how you tell the difference between fool's gold and regular gold, is you see it, especially in the sun. Because only gold has that kind of like a glitter.
If you were to touch this would be hard.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yep.
What about
Like this, like this. Some of these are a little bigger, but yeah, the smaller the gold, the harder it is to recover. But it's totally doable. They have equipment that's a little more expensive. And like, did I show you these ripples here? That real fine stuff.
Okay.
I can separate the black sand from that by putting these ripples on. No, I don't use mercury. Although mercury is great for gold, but it's not great for the world. But it turns out gold miners get a bad rap because everybody hears about mercury all the time. But it turns out mercury is actually a natural element in the Earth's soil. It releases into the rivers anyway. But we don't use mercury anymore. In fact, that too, burning it off can be very dangerous. But it also gets into the water and the fish, and then we eat it. But we do things so differently now. Today's gold prospectors, we're not just about ripping the ground up and trying to get in there and get wells. Few of us. Most of us today are trying to be good stewards of the land. And we backfill our holes, and we don't use mercury, and we try to do things, you know, as environmentally friendly as we can. In some cases, they say that they've shut down gold dredging, which is one form of gold prospecting where you basically vacuum the bottom of a river. You may have seen it on the TV show. You can't gold prospect in a lot of states anymore because it makes the water turn brown downstream, and people see that and they're like, oh no, but really, especially on rivers that have been dammed, that sediment builds up over the years, and fish can't lay their eggs unless they have a gravel bottom. So it actually improves fish habitat to go in there and dredge up that sediment that builds up in the bottom of the rivers and help it flush down. The same thing happens every year when there's a big flood. It washes all the sediment through, but especially on these rivers that are dammed, the floods can't wash the sediment through. So in some ways, it actually helps improve the rivers.
Jimmy, how do you know
I
it's a
absolutely will, yes.
sold me 2 of these and 1 of these?
Okay. Let me first show this to my cameraman over here because I know he was trying to get a good shot.
What would the biggest nugget in there be worth?
My biggest nugget in here, maybe $20. Yeah. And as I said, they look bigger through the water. It kind of magnifies it. We were in town yesterday at the Miners Depot shop there, and a guy come in with 2 gold cans, like half full of gold, $30,000. The guy back in Alaska, he sold it to them. They bought it from him at 70% of spot. A lot of us, I don't know how this guy is such a good prospector that he found $30,000 worth of gold and he's going to lose 20%, but he could have sent it directly to Midwest refiners and they'll give you 90%. But that's their business too. They're going to make that, the shop's going to make that other 20% and handle it all for him. And so he probably didn't want to mail, because you have to mail the Midwest refiners. He probably didn't want to mail $30,000 worth of gold. I don't think they insure it for that much.
So you just nail it?
The Midwest refiners, yeah, but maybe not $30,000 worth. You definitely want to insure anything you're going to sell. If anybody ever wants to sell a ring, platinum, silver, gold, do not go to those Levi Gold places. They're going to rip you off.
Big time.
If you can, weigh it, send it to Midwest refiners. They're trustworthy. Get insurance for as much as you think it's worth, or you can, and they will send you. With gold, it's 90%. Silver, it might be 80%, but Midwest refiners is the best place to sell your gold and your silver, in my opinion. There are many others, but I really like them.
And where are they located?
In the Midwest. I don't remember exactly. I think Detroit or something like that. Some weird place. That, I say that who here's from Detroit. I just call you home a weird place. So.
Yeah.
I'm from Detroit.
Yeah, but I heard what happened in Detroit. We won't talk about that on video.
Keep it weird, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to go to Detroit with the pets. Let's just put it that way.
Do you believe that it's actually a good thing to have people in hand?
Absolutely. Gold has gone up a bunch. When I started doing this, it was $450 an ounce, and maybe $350, $360, something like that. It wasn't very much. And a friend of mine, his grandfather had bought them all a 1 ounce gold coin. That's not real gold. That's just like a collector's coin from the club, but it's kind of cool. Anyways, his grandpa had bought them each a 1 ounce gold coin, and he took it and cashed his in. It was, I think, worth $460, and they gave, this isn't real gold. I just wanted to throw up this kind of neat. George Massey was the founder, and I'll tell you the story of the Gold Prospector Club, and I'll tell you the story of him in a second if I don't forget. He sold his coin for $450, and within 3 months, the price had gone up to $1,600 an ounce. And it's stayed over 1,000 ever since. It kind of fluctuates between 12 and 16, but it could go up at any day. And every one of these devices, these glasses which have a camera, this thing, that thing, it all uses gold now. That's one of the main reasons that the value of gold went up so much. This new electronic revolution we have with everybody having a cell phone in their pocket, that increased the demand for gold because they need it for these electronic components and even things like catalytic converters. It's utilized for so many things. George Massey, George the Buzzard Massey, he's the guy that started he's Tom Massey's dad. He used to do the gold show back in like the 80s. He started the GPAA, the LDMA. Have you ever heard of Dish Network? Okay, he started Dish Network. Yeah. Back in the 80s, they went up here in California near the Italian bar camp on, I think it's the Stanislaus. I get my river names confused. And they found a place where nobody had been able to get a suction dredge into. And they had one of their friends, they told him, we'll give you a full share of the gold if you use your helicopter to fly us and your dredge in. And they flew him and the dredge in and found something like 800 ounces in like a week. Yeah, they hit a pocket that the old timers missed, and so they got rich. He was on Carson talking about it, like it was a huge thing, and he wanted to do his own gold show and teach people and kind of hopefully give them the fevering and the love for the idea, like kind of what I'm doing now, but way bigger. And that gold show was what became Dish Network. You could only watch it over satellite dishes back when satellite dishes were like as big as a truck. And he would run other stuff just to fill the dead air time. Like Disney had a lot of stuff that was in the public domain, like old episodes of Davy Crockett and stuff. And then later he sold that to another company. He focused mostly on the gold prospecting thing. He passed away kind of young, and then his son took over. That's Tom Massey. And totally forgot what I was saying. I do that sometimes. So they sold the company, and that's now Dish Network.
Go in caves or mines or anything
Absolutely,
like
but it's a little dangerous. I know. I have a detector, and you can go detecting out here in the desert, and you might find something. The further you go away from people, the more likely it is that whatever you find is actually going to be gold. The closer you are to people, the more likely it is that you're going to find nails and trash and pull tabs. And if you don't like getting down on your knees, like I don't, every time to go dig in the dirt, then it's a good idea to go away from people so that you're more likely to find gold. There are hot rocks too, which are mineralized rocks, which will sound off like gold. There's also discrimination on the detectors, which will discriminate out a lot of the iron. I think Robert's gonna show us something here in a second, I hope.
Yeah, I can go ahead and do this. So if anybody wants to come up and watch, and I'll talk about it as I'm doing it here. So you put water in there and then you shake it. And you shake it and you'll see that on the surface, you'll start getting big stuff on the surface like that because all the smaller and heavier stuff goes down. So we get surface, bigger rocks on the surface there. And the gold should be down in it. And after you shake it up a while, then you throw off that top layer.
Sorry, not trying to feed it to you, but it's gotta be
That's all
close for them to hear.
I know. You throw off the top layer, and you can dip it in a stream and do it like that. That water's a little dirty, so I'm using fresh water, but, and you just shake it again. And you use the big ripples until you get down to a small amount, and then you use the smaller ripples. But all of the rocks will be getting smaller as we do this. And the heavier stuff, the black sand and gold, if there's any here, will drop down. So we just kind of wash some of it off.
What makes black sand so heavy?
It's iron, it's just, yeah, it's one of the heavier minerals.
And you
Is it
can take it
technically a
out with a
mineral? I should know
magnet. If we had a whole lot, I would use a magnet. I have a magnet to pull it out.
So the gold won't, is not attractive with
I see the big stuff is at the end and the smaller stuff, and the dark,
Yeah.
blacker stuff is down here.
And the
And the
minute,
bigger pieces are starting to wash out. So I
right
just
now
add
it's
some more water.
stratified. When it's moving, that's a liquid state, that's the stratification I was talking
Gold
about.
drops down, and then you just get rid of the very top layer each time
That takes some learning right
and put a little more water in it.
You'd be surprised, it's easier than you think, but
It looks like making a pizza.
you do
Shake
get better
it
at
up.
it as you go.
Then go for it. See, it's getting pretty fine
You
now.
can see the black sand starting to come out underneath already.
And what does the black sand mean?
The black sand is another, it's iron basically,
It's an
and it's
iron
another
sand.
heavy
Oxide
mineral,
is
they
that
collect
what it is?
together.
Yeah.
So when you see black sand, there's a good chance that you're in the area where gold could be. Gold isn't always in black sands, but black sands is almost always associated with gold.
Can you show us what black sand looks like?
There are black sand beaches, like up in Oregon and Nome, Alaska. There's a guy who joins the LDMA. He goes up to the Nome, Alaska camp every year and works a big long sluice box on the beaches that has just small rubber riffles, not really similar to that. And apparently this guy makes enough money up there at the club, not even his own claim, to pay for his lifestyle in Alaska the rest of the year. But to be fair, he's from Alaska, so he's got family and stuff. But he lives off what he makes in Alaska every year on a black sand beach.
No,
And your question,
What does black sand look like?
Black.
if you get closer, you might see some of it. It looks
You're gonna
black.
see
It's
some.
really fine. It's really black. There's actually a little bit of it in the bottom of this because it's hard to get rid of it.
color.
Yeah, we had a feeling there would be
color.
some good pieces in this one.
Yeah.
Yep. And can you see how it sticks out? Like
there's four
when you see gold, you know it's gold.
before we even messed with it.
I can't even put it in the sun.
George the Buzzard Massey.
George the Buzzard?
That was his nickname, the Buzzard. Yeah. Because he ate some rotten beans. Like there was like a 20-year-old can of beans, and they dared him to eat it, and he ate it, so they called him the Buzzard.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to hop right.
All of us prospectors are a little bit of characters.
They have something to talk about. Can't buy it.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I was around back then to hear some of the old stories and meet him.
Now, if anybody wants to pan out this other one, a pan at a time, which you can do it, you get just as much gold. It just takes longer than the sluice.
I also have a friend right here in Arizona who
And they can
has...
have the gold if they pan it.
Okay, sounds good to me. I also have a friend here in Arizona with a gold prospecting camp, and he's great for teaching people. Out near Brenda, about 20 miles past Quartzsite. Gold Fever Radio is his podcast, his TV station, and he has a camp that, if you wanted to get into it, that might be another place to check it all out.
So,
Jack Tucker.
May I use your pen?
Yes, go for it. That pan's a little different, but it might be a good one for learning. We also have some lead weights somewhere.
We need that.
I want to do my speed
Somebody
panning
grab that
demonstration
scoop out
before
of
we
the
leave.
sluice there for him.
Yeah, because I want to get you to make sure I'm doing it right while you're
Yes.
still here.
How do you know if, say you're out walking and you come up on a river or something, how do you know if it's already been claimed?
That's a good question. They're supposed to leave claim markers out there, which are usually like a stake in the ground and like a little bottle with a note in it that shows your claim paperwork. You can also go on, there's a website called the MineDat. It's a government website, and it'll show you where all of the mines, old and current, are. And you can kind of look on that and see. there are companies out there that their whole job is they go and strike claims and sell them to people. They don't care if there's gold on them or not. They get rich off selling the claim.
Yeah.
MindDat,
Yeah.
DAT. I think it's .org, but I can't remember. It's MindDat. That should get you there. And it's kind of an old government website, so but the information's there. There are other websites out there that try to keep the information as current as possible. Every year, I think it's October, September, people have to renew their mining claims. It's $100 a year unless you do some sort of improvements, like going and fixing up the road a little bit, just anything could be considered an improvement. Then you can get a waiver to where you only pay, I think it's $5 or $10 a year per claim. But you can only do that with up to
At
10
least a
claims.
dozen pieces of gold there so far. that
Get
I can
out.
That looks great.
Yeah.
Come on.
See at the top, all
This
those,
is one of our
Oh
favorite
my
families.
God. Wow.
and we're not done, you know, with that, but there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
They're like
Let me
pin
get out
pricks.
of the way,
about
I see
15
it.
pieces, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Where
Oh
does
my
sand come from?
goodness.
Take your finger and pull them
Now
out.
we suck them up
Let me
with
get
a
a
bottle.
picture of that. Let me
We
get
suck them up with a bottle. I'm gonna try to,
We'll show you in a minute.
I'm not done panning it, but it just show you right now, we can still see gold.
Where did you get this?
Across gold, yeah.
Oh, really?
With metal detectors, gold prospecting metal detectors can get a little pricey. If you're gonna go, yeah.
Across Dome Rock Road?
I have something called the Eureka Gold, which is an older model. It was like $1,200 ago. They have one here at the
Is that the
gold?
That's the
But it's super lightweight, it's waterproof,
Sir,
it's
what-
got a tiny
What's
coil,
going on
it'll
here
find
where that little
tiny
black,
tiny
it's
pieces of
floating the
I
gold?
think it's called the Gold Monster.
What's going on
It's
there?
by,
That's gold on that,
I
isn't it?
know, we have a little right here, is there that finish?
Metal detector company. Garrett
Is there
is great.
finish? Yeah,
He
here.
has the
You
gold
put a little,
bug,
this
that's
is
great
a
one.
detergent, a
I think Fisher makes the
minimal
gold
sudsy
bug.
detergent
There's
you
another one
use on
called the
dishes.
Service
Tesoro
tension.
Lobo Super
And
Flex.
knocks the
There's a lot of
service
really
tension
good gold
out
detectors out there.
so that it won't do that, because little
Oh
flakes
yeah,
will
Garrett,
float
yeah.
unless you
Garrett
put
makes
just a
the
little
metal
bit of that
detectors
in there and it
military
won't
use.
float anymore.
There's some
That's why we have that.
mines that these guys are making. Like
I could have put it in the sluice, one way to do it is put it in the
almost no
sluice.
metal in the entire landmine except for just the tiniest little sliver of wire. And so
Those are
my
little
friend Kevin
flakes,
Hoagland, who
and they
designs most
float.
of these metal detectors, he
Even though they're
designed
heavy.
detectors specifically for Garrett, for the military, for the mine sweeping guys to go out there and find the landmines.
So good.
Tiniest,
I pitched it all out.
metal.
Price range?
No, you probably didn't pitch it all out.
It depends
I
on.
mean, too low is no good, too high is ridiculous.
What do you get for those little?
It
Do you
depends
sell
on
those
whether you're
little
gonna go new or
pins?
used and how much you
Well,
want to get
you
into
get
it.
it by the ounce.
I think
you
you
know,
can
you
get
gotta
a
have,
good
you know, you
brand
gotta have a
new
significant
metal
amount to
gold
sell
mining
it.
detector like
What
the
I
one I'm
wondered was
talking about
the
for about
little
9.
gold
I don't know
minded
what
You can
pans
probably
there.
find
Oh,
some
talking
that
about the
used
pan.
for
Oh, I'm
about
sorry, the pan,
4 or 5.
they're about
yeah.
10
See that
dollars.
pan?
And some of them can go.
Yeah, this is
The
A whole bunch of
Eureka,
cores and quartzite.
the mine
You
lab,
guys should have bought a whole bunch out. You could have sold them.
it's in the little shop here. There's only 2 hanging on the wall, and it's up at the top, and it's so lightweight. I would love if I could test it. I'll get it someday. Anyways, some of these things go up like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a detector.
Oh, yeah, I know, I
Yeah.
saw 14,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of those,
It says it can go real deep, but
Well,
I
that's
don't wanna be
the-
digging by hand that.
He might sell you
the
his
thing.
for 20.
That's the thing. It's hard digging, but you're more likely to find something good. I have a friend, not I know him from the Gold Camp. I don't even know his name. It's still a friend. But he went out in the Mojave Desert a couple years ago, digging with his expensive, like $7,000 mine lab, whatever. And he got a signal, so he started digging down. He dug down about 3 foot, and he found this big boulder. He had to get a Sierra blaster, which is an air thing that blasts rocks apart with air pressure, break the rock apart. He had like 3-day thing to get this done. Come back, he still had a good signal. He got all that rock out of the way. He dug down another 3 feet. When he got down to the bottom,
So I
he
don't
found
think
a
I'm
chunk
losing
of
any.
gold
I
with
keep
quartz,
watching up in here
about
to
the size
see
of a
if
basketball.
there are any flakes
Oh,
up in here.
Pounds of gold.
And I think they're all still in the
Yeah.
bottom there.
So he paid for his detector. Most of us don't, but he did.
close so.
No problem.
Now, once you get
You ever
kind of
find
down to the
meteors?
bottom, you shake it down to one edge
I
and
find some
then
things in my pan
swirl it
sometimes
like
that I do
this
believe could be meteorites,
to
but
try to
I'm
get
not
the
an
light
expert
stuff
on
to
that.
go off the
But
top
they
of the
have
gold.
they're a heavy material, so they'll collect
But
them there
this
just
is
like
really
this.
heavy.
Speaking of, that's another
I'm
point. I
probably
forget
gonna
all my
get
points.
my magnet.
One of the
There's so
things
much
today's
black
prospectors
sand
do
here.
when we're dredging, and any of this, we are removing fish hooks and lead weights and all kinds of heavy metal crap. from the places that we go prospecting. If you're removing gold, if there's somebody's shot, a shotgun out there and there's a bunch of, shotgun pellets, or there's people have been fishing there and there's a bunch of fishing weights, that's lead in the river. And when we come through with the dredges, we're not just sucking up the gold and saving that, we're sucking up all of that trash, and most of us are smart enough to haul it out afterwards. I've seen some pictures where some of these dredgers have just mountains of fish hooks and lead weights and bullets and junk that they pull from the rivers.
Nice.
What about minerals and jade or, other?
I really want to get into rock hounding because it's all kind of related, and if you're out digging in the dirt, it really does serve you well to know what you're seeing, because I could be throwing away something that's worth money, and even I might know because I focus mostly on gold. I have a friend that found some jade back home, not a whole lot, but enough to make some little figurines and stuff out of. He just chipped it right out of a rock wall. He never would tell me where it was. I went looking 3 times.
In North Carolina, you would make a lot more money harvesting the minerals and stuff like garnets and rubies and stuff.
Than you will from the gold. And all of that is worth money. Even the black sand is worth a little bit of money. There are places that will buy black sand. You have to send them a large bag of it for it to be worth anything.
Wow, look at all that
Garnet is
goldy,
definitely worth
shiny
money.
stuff.
Yeah.
I think I may have even found a diamond once.
Wow, isn't that nice?
Very nice.
So basically you're getting off all the
Yes.
the bigger
Yes.
rocks.
The light
Here's the thing with
Light
that.
stuff.
Most of the
Bigger
lower
rocks.
areas and the river
And now we're
areas
down
have already
to
been gone through.
iron
But
sand
that doesn't mean
and
that they
gold.
don't
That's
get
all
replenished
black
with each
sand,
flood.
which is an
Part of a
iron
mountain falls down,
sand.
not even a big part, just like a little hill,
Let's see,
The rain
it's
comes
around
through,
the
washes
edges.
it down,
Around
it
the
ends up in
edges.
the river. And so rivers where people
There
have
you
found
see
a
a
lot of
little
gold in the
So
past,
that black
they
sand
can have new
eventually you're
gold
gonna
come
cut
into
out.
I
them
looked for
after
my
one
map
big
and I
flood.
couldn't find it.
But
You can just pick it up
if
with a
you
magnet
really,
if you
really
want
want a
to.
good
And
chance
get
of
black
finding a
sand
lot of
and
gold,
gold,
the best
good
way
idea.
is, especially when
get
they're
rid of-
calling
at
out
this
with metal
point, then what do
detecting,
you do?
is to get as
You
far
pick
away
it
from
out?
people as
Suck
you
it
can.
out with a
Have
little,
like an ATV or a
one of
dirt
these
bike or a
things?
side rail and take your
yes, yeah, that's one you can do it with,
detector
yeah.
out there with you and get away from people. But you can find it, and there's also places where you don't need a claim. Back home in Lake Isabella,
So
California,
how much
there's a spot on the Kern
much
River called
money
Keysville.
in gold you
BLM,
have there?
14-day camping, and it's a general
dollar,
open prospecting area. The main section, nobody can claim it. Anybody can go down there and work it. It's been worked over 1,000,000 times, and people still find something all the time. Not a lot, but something.
Do you have suggestions as to what to get or look for with different types of metal detectors?
Like I was telling these guys earlier, there are several great metal detecting companies. If you're going to go for gold, you want to get a detector that's gold specific. But Fisher Gold Bug is a great one, yes. I prefer Mine Lab. I love my Mine Lab. Robin here has the Fisher Gold Bug too, I believe. Tesoro Lobo Track is a good one.
Yeah.
Garrett is a good
And
one.
there's more over in
White
here.
is
That's
a great
not all of it.
detector
There's
for
about
anybody
14
who
pieces
wants to
in
get
there.
A lot
into.
in there.
Well, they have gold specific
See over
white
here, too?
detectors,
Yeah.
but they have one called
Yeah.
the
There's
MX2,
about
I
14 or
believe,
15
Awesome.
pieces
that
in there.
also does coins and relics. So if you're not finding gold and you want, you can find coins and relics with any detector.
Texas
But like that white
I did,
MXT, it'll
and,
sort of tell you,
that's
okay, we think
wonderful
this is going to be a
news,
coin
isn't it?
down here. It has like a little display, which helps you decide if you want to dig or not. And it's still a good gold detector too. It's more versatile.
I think if you want to be looking for gold anywhere around water instead of the MXT, you prefer the MX.
And which one do you have that you like?
She knows more than I do. I haven't looked into detectors in a long time, but that's a great point. Yes, waterproof. The new Gold Monster I was just looking at today has that. I fell in love with that machine at the store. It's waterproof up to 10 meters. It's super lightweight.
Do you have to
Which machine would you recommend?
You don't
right
have to have a detector. You can start out with just a pan. If I was going to go buy a brand new detector right now, and I didn't want to buy the $8,000 model or something, Mine Lab Gold Monster is the one that I'm like, I want that so bad right now.
Mine Lab.
Mine Lab Gold Monster.
1,000.
I have the Mine Lab Eureka Gold, which is the older version of that. But they're all made, basically, Kevin Hogan makes all of them for all the different companies. And so, well, I don't know if he's the only one that makes them, but he's good. He has a TV show and a YouTube channel called Gold Trails, and he's really, really informative.
So why do you like that?
I'm kind of an amateur, to be honest with you.
Why do you like that Gold Master?
The thing I really like about the Gold Master is, well, for one, they said it'll pick up even smaller pieces than the one I currently have, but it's very, very lightweight. And when you're out swinging a detector all day, even if it seems lightweight from the start, it starts to drag on your arm after a while. And these new ones are so much lighter, I feel like I could swing that thing all day. I haven't tried it, but I feel like I could. And it's waterproof up to 10 meters, or 10 foot, something like that. But that's what I really like about that, and I'm just a fan of the Mind Lab company. We all have our preferences, and I just kind of like the way they work. I really like whites too, though. That doesn't mean I don't like any of the others. Whites, Gold Bug, they're all great detectors.
So before you forget, you're gonna tell me how to use these things.
Oh yes, the classifiers. Okay, this is a simple process I should have went into earlier. When we first start doing this, just like the riffles in the sluice box, I was telling you how they can create a dead zone, which will allow the gold to drop out. If you have a big rock in there, it can create another like vortex zone that pushes the gold out of your riffle. So ideally, you want to classify all of the dirt that you dig down as much as possible so that it's the same size. If it's the same size, it's easier to stratify. They don't lock up as much. So when we go out there, we take these simple things, just a classifier, set it on the bucket. Actually, we set the smaller one on the bucket first, and then you set the next size up, and you load your dirt in there, and you just shake the hell out of it, and it classifies it out. Yeah. So they're a real simple device. Sorry?
You use 2 of them for that mesh.
It depends on where you're at. Here, we're going down to the fine mesh, which is a little more work. I'll usually stick with like a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. Some people will have 6 of them, 6 different sizes going all the way down. The more you classify, the easier it is to recover. The more you classify, the easier it is to pan. The more you classify, the easier it is to run a sluice box. But you don't always have to classify either. In certain places, with a dry washer, it has the classifier built into the top. So you just shovel the dirt on, and it classifies it down to a 1/2 inch on its own. And then when it's all done, then you can classify again before you pan. Did you get a shot of? Oh, I just washed them away.
No, he's got some in there.
There's also so many different ways of panning. One of the things I like to do, get it all in a corner like that, then maybe give it a few taps, which kind of locks the gold down into that bottom corner, and then you slowly wash it back, and see how it's starting to show up in the corners there? I washed it too hard, but you slowly wash that black sand off the top. I would put it in my gold claw and show you, but Robin's going to let you guys pan this, so I don't want to.
And then what do you do from this point? How do you get it into your little Jackson 5?
Where is my snuffer bottle? No, do we have a snuffer bottle? I didn't bring a magnet with me. Actually, I did bring a magnet with me. I did bring a magnet with me. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
See, this is plastic in the bottom. There's a little earth magnet in there, and you just kind of pull it up, and then let it go.
Who was it that you said owns that claim, that dome rock?
Dome rock?
Between the-
There are a few different claims there, and one of them is the Quartzite Metal Detecting Club.
Okay.
You can sign up for them at the Miners Depot there in Quartzite. But there's also a GPAA club there. That's the big book I was telling you about, the first club that most people join. They have something like 1,000 or 2,000 claims across the country. So almost anywhere you're traveling, you can pull out their book and find a place to go camp in that state.
How much is that per year for the GPA?
Last I checked, I'm a lifetime now, so it's, but last I checked, $89 a year. And it comes with a pan your first time and some other stuff, and yeah.
It's $69 a year.
Gold Monster.
So you're just pulling off the black sand.
Black sand, yeah. Just because it's so hard to get out of there. And I'm putting it in here just to look at it. But typically, I don't pick up anything else with it. But I want to look at it, see if we're getting any gold out with it.
Not necessarily, no, but you can, and especially if your metal detector is waterproof. Usually when you're detecting, that's pretty much the only piece of equipment you're using. You're hoping to find big enough pieces, what we call pickers, that you can pick them out. If you're going for any finer stuff like this, it's better to use something like this. Even, I don't know how accurate today's most advanced metal detectors are, but there's a limit to how small the gold can be.
So not all the black sand is magnetic, but most of it is.
And I want to give you guys a speed panning demonstration here in a minute.
Is that because it's iron-based?
Just to show you how well this all works in theory. Do you know where those lead weights are on? Probably in my bag
Do
still.
your bag, yeah.
Are there tours, gold panning tours in that?
So anyway, I got a lot of the black sand out there to make it just a little easier with a magnet. And I'll try to clean this up so we can see it a little better.
The clubs and all.
Yeah, once you see it, you know. People always ask when they start, and that's the thing I tell them is once you see it, you'll know the difference between gold and fool's gold.
Fool's gold just doesn't glitter quite like that.
Yeah, it glitters, but it doesn't have that gleam and that shine, and especially when it hits the light, you just know.
This piece is all the way around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's probably
From fool's gold, fool's gold is really light.
That's
So
probably
it should
okay.
be, no, mercury, I'll get to that in a second. Fool's gold is really light, so it shouldn't be a problem. It'll wash right out of the pan, usually. As far as what they used to do with mercury, mercury traps gold. If it touches gold, it wraps around it, covers it, encompasses it. They're like attracted to each other. So they would coat the bottom of a copper pan with mercury, and it would stay on the copper pan. And then as they're panning, it lessens the chance of losing any because it's most likely to get locked into that mercury. Then at the end, they would scrape the mercury off and go burn it off in a fire. And if they got crazy, they became a Mad Hatter. But like the Hatters back in the days, the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, they used mercury to make their hats, and so a lot of them were crazy as.
Yeah.
So I will give you guys a speed panning demo here in a second. There's a mine up north called the 16-to-1 mine, and they do tours. There are a lot of different mines around that do tours.
Like where you can go and pan?
Knott's Berry Farm. They have a panning table set up with real gold in it. Bisbee, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different places around the country that do that. But you know, if you're really interested, going to those gold prospecting outings is the best way because you get a chance to use all the equipment and talk to other people who know what they're doing with it. Yeah. So gold and lead are approximately the same gravity, so they work very similar. I want a little more water in here for what I'm going to do, and it might get a little wet, so give me a second. And stand back when I get going. Now, my friend Jack Tucker, who owns the claim just outside of Quartzsite, the gold mining camp, goldfeverradio.com, he taught me how to speed pan a couple years ago. He's the Arizona state champion, something like 20 years running, and I'm slow compared to him, but I trust my panning skills, and it's easy. That's all it is. Just like riding a bike. When you start pedaling, eventually you trust that it's going to move because it's physics. With gold prospecting, you trust that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. So let's put a big...
Where did you get this sand from?
We dug this out on a gold prospecting claim here in Quartzsite over by Dome Rock. Now, these are lead weights. I'm going to put a couple big ones and a couple small ones and see if I get them all back. Yeah, and I just smashed them. Some of them are smashed. Some of them actually are shotgun pellets. And these are like fishing weights that I smashed. Lead, yep. So I'll have to set that down and just talk for a minute here, but I'm going to put 3 big ones in there and what do I got here? 4 little ones in there. The little ones are trickier. If you want to learn to pan, get you some lead fishing weights, start with the big ones, work down to the small ones. Now the whole idea is to stratify this so that, I'll even put another load of dirt in there. It'll make it a little harder, but I shouldn't be able to see it. I don't like it.
Excuse me.
Stratify this so that you know, I can even pull those back out and put at least one on top, that's going to sink down when I start doing this right now.
The weather's gonna sink.
Yeah, we're going to get a little wet, so everybody be careful. It's hot, you might like it.
Water, it's okay.
So, just water.
Just shorted everything out.
Submerge this. I'm going to submerge it, help my hand to help stratify it, pull it back, and wash that off as quick as I can. And hopefully I will recover. Did I have 4 little ones?
Yeah.
4 little ones, 3 big ones.
Yep.
And I got. And I was slow. That was really slow. My friend Jack would just
My
boom,
gosh,
boom,
that
and
was
he's done.
slow.
Yeah, and my friend Jack would just come in and boom, boom, and he's done.
Holy
The last gold prospecting outing, we have all these different games and stuff, and one of them, well, we have something called left, right, center.
That is so much
We have a rubber ducky race, and the winner gets a little nugget. Like everybody, you buy a duck for like $1, and whoever's
Let me
duck
see what
wins.
you got left in that pan. Well done.
Yeah, I've been doing it a little while. And so,
And that's what you do if you thought there was nuggets.
Although I'd like
yeah,
to see,
it's
I'd
speed
like to see a
panning
little more
is
color
kind
in
of a
here,
fun
sir.
thing. Yeah, I'd rather see color too.
Is that more for bigger pieces?
Yeah, but did you see the little ones that saved? You really don't want to speed pan in practice because you could lose something.
Right.
But it's just like a thing we do as prospectors. We like to see who can
It's
pan the
competition,
fastest
right?
without losing anything. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so
Very
last
well
year
done.
at the Gold Prospectors outing, we had like 12 people who were doing the speed panning competitions, and final rounds we'd go head to head. And I'm ready because Jack taught me, and I'm like, I know how I'm going to do it this year. I'm going to win this. And I'm up against this other guy, and as soon as we start, he's like, oh man, I washed mine out. He said that he washed his out of his pan. So I'm like, well, I win. So I slowed down and just started taking my time. The next thing you know, he says, done. And he really thought that he washed his out. He wasn't trying to trick me, but he totally did. But I have another Gold Prospectors outing this March that I plan to be at, and I'm going to win this year.
Hey, all right.
Where is it?
Duesenberg, California, which is just outside of Ridgecrest, near Randsburg, the Randsburg Mining District.
You go in front of the
Ridgecrest is where the quake was, right?
China Lake, yes, where the quake was. They're on 395, yep, right off 395. You're going between Ridgecrest and Kramer Junction, about halfway between the two. You come down the bottom of a hill, and there's a railroad track that leads out to the Duesenberg private claim.
Have any of y'all mined in North Carolina?
Yes, we have claim in North Carolina, and one in Georgia too.
Whereabouts is the one?
I haven't been there
Rutherford
myself.
Town, or-
I haven't been there myself, and I don't have that book with me. Loud Mine is in Georgia.
It's not rust.
Just some, it is rust. It is rust. I had water in there and a piece of
Oh,
something
because
rusty.
metal.
Yeah, I could clean it off because the pan is, but a piece of metal was in
Yeah,
there.
like the ones they showed me.
Anybody want to try?
Maybe,
So what are the
Yeah, I put
different,
the
like
dirty
I see
end
different
on
colored
somebody.
things? Blue, the two blue ones are
Just a
different
preference.
shapes?
It's
Okay.
what we think the gold's going to stick out the most in. Everybody's
Okay.
eyes are trained better. Blue is a really good one. Green.
But that's almost more like a panning and a mini version of that in one
Basically, yeah.
system.
Yeah.
That's
you want
smart.
those
Yeah.
little pieces?
Yeah, actually. At least the big ones. I got a million of the little
What
ones.
about?
we've all watched.
Maybe he'll show us how to use the claw.
You absolutely could. I'm just not familiar with this one. I am very familiar with that one.
Show us how you do the claw.
Okay,
We're gonna get a first
let me do the claw. A first what?
pan, would you get, say, this one?
No, actually, I would start with this one, or this. I really like this, but I would probably start with this. When you join the Gold Prospectors Association, you get this pan. Yeah. So that's a great starting pan.
Oh, you're
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. It's just a little one.
It'll grow.
Thank you.
Let me try one of those.
Yeah. I'll let,
That thing is hard to use. I couldn't
What was
figure
those
out
two
what to do.
different organizations you could look up?
Oh, I want to see what he does.
The Gold Panning Association, I think, is the
the
one
good
he
thing
said.
about
that-
this is it has very deep ridges also, and that's great
What was
for
the
beginners.
initials?
That's okay.
What was,
There were a couple of big ones in there because they're easier to recover. And go for it.
what was those two organizations?
GPAA, Gold Prospectors Association of America, and LDMA, Lost Dutchman's Mining Association.
Gotcha.
What was the name of that website that had the list of mines? I know you said it.
MineDat, D-A-T, like data, or just dat. Yeah.
But those are claim mines, right? You can't.
If you're a club member, that's why you become a club member.
Oh,
So you have access to it. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out.
So it's called MineDat?
MineDat. Well, the MineDat is a government website that helps you figure out who owns what claim and who doesn't. The others are the club claims I was talking about.
So I'm actually kind of, yeah. Gold is awesome, but I'm interested in turquoise. Like,
What they call rock hounding, but it's still awesome too.
so, but I'm just kind of also interested in what does it take to establish a small claim? Like, is it really, like, it
I've never
seems
struck
simple,
my
like,
own claim,
theoretically
but I
you could.
sort of understand the process.
Like,
Because
you
I travel too
post
much,
the
I don't wanna
corners
stay
and-
if I find good gold, I will strike one
Right.
day though. You have to be familiar with GPS
Mm-hmm.
and longitude and latitude and all that, and you have to make sure it's not claimed.
Mm-hmm.
Going to like MineDat,
MineDat and-
your local BLM office and your local, I think, it's a
Department
county-
of-
somebody from the county. I think it's the assessors or something
yeah.
like that. You go to them and you just pay your fee and file your paperwork and show where your claim
Right, because
center
you have to have a
is,
center and then
and your
four
markers.
corners.
Yep.
Okay. But it just sounded very
A lot
interesting
of them have been
that.
claimed in the past if there's any gold. So a lot of times you can find all that information just by seeing what the last person who held that claim.
No, if
had
you say we're just interested in trying to, like, can you establish a claim without having previously found much on it?
Technically, you're supposed to find something to establish your claim.
Right. I mean, you can find something anywhere.
And that's another thing before, sorry, I don't want to get off track, but before I lose any more people, I already lost followers, but that's okay. Fishing is a privilege. Driving is a privilege. Most things are privileged. Mining is an actual right guaranteed by an act of Congress known as the Mining Act. And that's why it's so hard for them to get rid of a lot of this, and that's why we have so many rights to come out and do this. And that's why I can go on BLM with a 14-day limit on my claim or my club claim and stay longer, because I'm not just there recreating there. I'm there working an actual legal piece of property that's backed by a, congressional act, an act of Congress, the Mining Rate Act. So they want to try to make us think that it's the right, a privilege, but it's actually a constitutional right now, and it's been around for a couple hundred years. It's the Mining Act.
And I mean, so my understanding of that is that while you're on your claim, you also cannot restrict, other than for safety hazard purposes,
Yes and no,
you can't restrict people,
Traveling
coming across.
and camping. They're allowed to camp on your
Right.
claim, but they cannot interfere.
They cannot work your
And
claim.
if the miner's a real jerk, and he's got his hole over here digging, and you set your tent up over here, he could literally come and say, I want to work right there.
Right.
He can't really make you leave. You can go over there, and at a certain point, he can't say he's working here and here and here and here and here and here.
Right.
But
But you can
and
make life
some of them are crazy. Some of them come out with guns and everything. Most of us aren't. Most of us are really nice people. But
Of course.
there are some crazy guys out there that they think they own the, and sometimes they do own the land too. There are patented deeded mining claims. All of the LDMA camps are not private property, not public. Up until the 90s, if you found really good gold and you were willing to pay for the paperwork and everything, you could strike a patented deeded claim. You could go out into your favorite piece of forest and just say, this is my private property now, basically. That's why they got rid of it, because too many people were taking advantage of it. But most of us didn't do it for that. Most of us did it because we found gold and we liked the place. And there's one guy back home who struck a patented claim on a hot spring, so he can keep everybody out of the hot spring. He never prospects, but he got it in before when they shut all that down. Yeah. What was I going to do? I was going
That
to
just seems very
do
interesting.
the gold claw real quick, which I'm not real familiar with the fast panning on the gold claw. I use it for cleanup mostly, but
So how much is that gold claw?
that's, see how it locked up in the bottom? That's because it's all clay, and I just washed all those out, I think.
That pan is very hard for me.
No, they're
I
there.
wanted to see you do it the right way.
All right, he just
Yeah,
found two
this
pieces of
pan is
gold,
different.
panning on, scoop board.
I think these are still here.
How
Then you
much
actually, you
is
flip
that
it around
pan?
this way, and then you kind of wash it out like that. You see how fast that washed that down? And then they are still there.
How much is the pan?
That pan is $40. It's pretty pricey for a pan. It might be a little less now. Only 30 now. Okay, so it's coming down. Good. 30's much better.
Teflon,
Yeah.
Pie plan like in the movies?
Literally, that's what they did back in the day. They would take a pie pan, and then they started figuring out that by punching these, they started making dents in the pie pans to put the riffles. Now with the roto molding for all the plastic stuff today, they can.
What's the name of that place in Isabella? You said something
Keysville.
about Key?
Keysville. It's easier to write it on paper than say it. But it's a great camping spot. Watch out if you go in that river. It's dangerous. When you go into the Kern River Canyon, there's a big sign up front that says, stay out, stay alive, 385 lives lost since 1957 or something like that. Oh, okay. We got to shut down next presentation. But thank you guys all so much for coming. This has been very fun.
And like always,
Thank you, Eric, the goat guy, for doing my camera work.
And make
Go
sure
like
you-
and sub to him.
and so subs, make sure you sub to him if you haven't
Yes,
already.
and I'm the Almost Happy Camper on YouTube. I also run Facebook's largest camping group, Boondocking and Free Camping USA, where we do curse, and some people don't like that. So if you go there, sorry if you don't like that.
Thanks a lot. Great
Yeah.
job.
Please like, subscribe, and share. Everyone.
Please like, subscribe, and share. That is the number for the mining depot in Quartzsite, where you can sign up for the local club, which is